Who here's ready for some wrestling?
Hey, there's my favorite wrestler. Tomorrow night is gonna be a barn burner. Where exactly are we headed? As far as I know, a real rural spot.
Welcome. Welcome.
Is it just me, or is there something off about this place?
Everyone is here for you.
Okay, focus up. Have a good show. Boys, you're up first.
I'm thick. I'm thin. We're in.
People told me that pro wrestling was fake. Pro wrestling is about sacrifice.
Crowd's bonkers.
Let the celebration begin! Only one walks away.
This isn't a game.
We need to get the hell out of here.
My children! 5 matches.
Crowding the talent.
5 offerings.
Really think you're getting out of here alive?
With your sacrifice, the Dark Lord shall arise.
He's recording these. He's making copies.
This is a snuff film.
I told you it'd be a barn burner.
I don't have to do this.
I can't die in the ring.
You can't hide.
I'm not running.
It ain't over until one of you's eliminated.
What do you want?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Fresh Cuts. This is Mike. Joining me, as always, is Mr. Venom. How's it going, Venom?
Greetings and salutations, wrestling fans. It's real to me, man. It was always real to me. How the hell are you doing, Mike?
Oh, God, that classic clip that I
actually love that guy.
Damn it.
I love his passion. I mean, obviously everyone's got their opinions on professional wrestling, some positive, some negative, but passion like that, I always like, regardless of what kind of fandom we're talking about. So yeah, bravo to that guy. I don't care. Make fun of him all you want. I love him.
All right, also with us, it's Don and Ellie. What's up, Don?
Yeah, what's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right. Well, we are tackling a movie that was dropped on Shudder a couple weeks ago. We had a week off from the theaters this week. And although by the time you're listening to this, we'll probably be recording our next episode, which more on that at the end of this show. But this dropped, like I said, this dropped on Shudder. And because it's still kind of the beginning of the year, it's a little more, I wouldn't say it's barren for like VOD horror. Like, it's not the glutton of choices that will be there in a few months where we'll get behind on like all there is to watch. So being on Shudder made it easy. It's something everyone has access to. So this movie is called Dark Match. It is, according to IMDb, it is unrated. I guess that counts for something, but yeah. The synopsis is: a small-time wrestling company accepts a well-paying gig in a backwoods town, only to learn too late that the community is run by a mysterious cult leader with devious plans for their match. Okay, and we'll start off with our general thoughts. Actually, this is written and directed by Lowell Dean. Let's see, do we know anything about Lowell Dean?
Is the guy that did the
Wolf Cop.
movies.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah, so he has some horror acumen under his belt. I guess horror comedy in that case, but actually, probably even more comedy than horror, I would almost say, for Wolf Cop. But anyways, yeah, let's get to our general thoughts on Dark Match. Venom, I'll throw you in the ring first. What did you think of Dark Match?
Unfortunately, I did not have a very good time with this movie. I am not a current pro wrestling fan. I'm an old pro wrestling fan, 80s and 90s for the most part. So I was hoping that there would be something here for, an old wrestling fan. And unfortunately, the wrestling is almost non-existent in this movie. Like, if you're looking for actual pro wrestling, this movie ain't for you. I mean, we get we get a little bit of a montage early in the film introducing all of our characters, and there's wrestling going on during that montage, but you're not going to see any actual, at least not any good wrestling. And then by the time we get to the third act and those matches start, they're not wrestling. Like, I don't even consider those wrestling. I mean, obviously we'll be able to explain my thoughts a little bit later as we walk through the film, but yeah, I don't know, man. Jericho, man, how can someone who was actually a professional wrestler for over 20 years be so bad at playing a professional wrestler?
If you've seen his current stuff, you'll know that this is actually par for the course with what he does.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I don't expect great acting chops from professional wrestlers. I mean, when somebody like The Rock is, a diamond in the rough, not every wrestler is going to turn into The Rock, but man, and the thing is, I've seen Jericho in other films and I have less of a problem with them, but in this film specifically, he's playing a wrestler, something he did professionally for 25 fucking years, and he's bad at it. That doesn't make sense to me.
He's bad at it. He's bad at it in his current run. That's the thing.
Oh, I mean, again, yeah, I mean, I haven't watched him wrestle in well over 20 years, so, again, there could be something to that. But all I'm saying is, when I see a professional wrestler playing a professional wrestler in a film, I expect them to be believable. And yeah, this is not it. Unfortunately, we get some pretty lame kills for a movie like this. The kills should be like in the forefront. They should be just visceral and bloody and instead we get like very basic kills in this movie, and it's pretty disappointing. I mean, we're talking about a cult who has to sacrifice these professional wrestlers for some reason. I'll leave that under my hat for now, but obviously it's a cult, so I mean, anybody with half a brain should be able to figure out what the ritual is. But the point is, with this kind of setup, the kills should have been a lot more fun, a lot more visceral, something that I would like stand up and either applaud or laugh at because it's so comical. But yeah, very little about this movie did anything for me. There's no acting chops to be found. It's great to see Stephen Ogg again, obviously, veteran of The Walking Dead, also plays my favorite video game character of all time, Trevor from Grand Theft Auto 5. Absolutely adore that character. So to see Stephen Ogg getting more acting jobs is great. And ultimately, he's the only positive thing I really can say about this movie. I thought his performance was decent. Definitely has that like Richard Brake attitude, if not the look in some scenes. But yeah, just man, the menagerie of actors that they got for this, just not very convincing, not a whole lot of good performances. Our main character playing the wrestler Misbehave, I mean, she wasn't terrible, but she also wasn't great. I don't know why she was chosen to be the lead, but whatever. Just overall, just not nearly as fun a movie. Anybody who loves professional wrestling knows pro wrestling is fun. First and foremost, it's supposed to be fun to watch, to go to the arena and be there in person. There's very little fun about this movie. The wrestling isn't fun. The characters aren't fun. The kills aren't fun. I will say there are some pretty satisfying kills. Not to say that they're great kills, but they're satisfying in the sense that they're shitty characters. I definitely actually applauded one or two kills. Not because they looked great, just because of the characters that were dying. One particular character that got impaled, I literally laughed out loud in my living room. So there is some satisfaction to be had here, but overall, this feels like a weak effort. It definitely misses out on the fun factor. And the fact that this is Lowell Dean, folks, I love the Wolf Cop movies. I fucking love both Wolf Cop, I said cock, both Wolf Cop movies.
Freudian slip there?
Yeah, Freudian slip. Yeah, I think I'll be watching some werewolf porn later.
That's a whole different movie you're talking about.
But yeah, I mean, I love those films. I mean, Wolf Cop is something I watch almost annually. I think it's so much fun. The fact that this is the same writer director is very, very disappointing to me, because this movie just, to me, wasn't fun. Now, I understand that I'm not a current professional wrestling fan, so maybe a current pro wrestling fan might have a different opinion on this movie. I don't know. All I'm saying is I was unimpressed with the wrestling. I was unimpressed with the acting. I was unimpressed with the kills. About the only thing that really worked for me was the basic storyline, the world building, stuff like that. But overall, just not a very fun movie, and it really should have been. I mean, a horror comedy based around professional wrestling and a satanic cult. I mean, come on, that the formula for fun is right there, but they fail miserably. So yeah, I'm gonna leave my general thoughts at that and say, yeah, this was an incredibly disappointing film. Especially with an actual pro wrestler playing a, prophet / professional wrestler, and just very, very disappointing overall. So yeah, I'll leave my general thoughts at that. Definitely not something that I would recommend. I mean, there's better stuff on Shudder currently, newer stuff that's come out since Dark Match that, is going to be a little bit higher quality. But if you want to just, have like a turn your brain off type film and just, watch these pro wrestlers get decimated in different ways, then rock on. But otherwise, I can't really recommend it. So I'll leave my general thoughts at that for now.
All right. How about you, Don? What did you think?
Yeah, I'm a current pro wrestling fan. Yeah, this was ass. There's very little about this to enjoy. I even think Venom's being kind of kind on this one. There's genuinely no reason for you to watch this one. Now, the only thing I will say positive about this one is that I do enjoy the central setup. The idea that they're tricked into doing the show and there's some kind of secret ritual to be had about what's going on with it and why they're going through with it. I think that's kind of the only real, positive to be had with this, because you can probably make something work that, over time they start realizing, hey, what's going on? Like, why are the matches turning out the way that they are? What's happening with, why is everything being like, so one-sided? What's happening? And then everything just kind of gets brought out into the open and how everything just kind of takes place from there. I think you could have had some fun with that, especially with all of the, kills and, how bloody and gruesome they are. But yeah, everything else about this one is just incredibly weak. Like, the pacing to this one is just atrocious. It just takes forever to get everything resolved. The storyline for the villains is just all over the place. There's like 4 or 5 different motivations for why they're doing this that kind of get brought up. And more importantly, you just don't give a rat's ass about anybody in here. Like, there's nothing for any kind of backstory about who the people are in the troupe. There's no, motivation for why they're even on this card, why they're even following through on the matches, what they're on the tour for. Most of them, we only real know them by their ring name and, not like their professional personal names. There's very little about this that kind of makes you gravitate to them. We know, like I said, there's nothing about who the cult is and why they're there. So all of the material there is just completely gone. The ending is just absolutely terrible. What happens there, how everything just unfolds. Yeah, this was, I'm not going to say it was a dumpster fire, but it was just a step above. So yeah, this one was very, very low on the totem pole. I mean, the wrestling matches are terrible. Even the first act where we get introduced to them, they're so quick and so jump cutty. It's hard to get any kind of enjoyment out of them. This whole thing is just a mess overall. So yeah, not a high recommend. You can skip this one. There's much better stuff out there. And like I said, the current day product is nowhere better, because as good as Jericho was 15 years ago, Jericho's current character is just absolutely awful as well. So yeah, you're not missing much staying with him for the 80s and 90s. There's no real reason to watch this one, even for him, because he doesn't do anything really remotely interesting, but just like he does in his current AEW. So yeah, if you've seen it, you'll know. But for now, it's pretty much all I've got because I don't know what else to say without spoiling this thing.
Oh, and Don, thank you for bringing up the ending. I totally forgot. I'm right there with you. This ending is fucking awful. How dare you give us an Amazing Spider-Man 2 type ending? I mean, did you actually think that this is going to become a franchise? Like, no, I'm sorry. That ending is of all the infuriating things in this movie, the ending is the most infuriating. So yeah, thank you for reminding me, Don.
All right. Was that pretty much wrap it up for you, Don?
I said, yeah. If I go any further, I'm probably going to end up spoiling it.
Okay. All right. So I pretty much echo the sentiments that have already been said. Unfortunately, I wasn't too big a fan of this. When I read the synopsis and kind of going into it, I was like, okay, it sounds silly, but there's a potential for it to be like fun if they make it over the top. As far as pro wrestling goes, I was a fan from like childhood to about my mid-20s. So it's not I'm like familiar enough, obviously, with like kind of how things work. But the problem is this movie just reminded me of a extended if you remember the final episode of Tales from the Dark Side was that cheesy wrestling episode where he was like wrestling like the devil or something for like I don't even remember the details, but I just remember it being cheesy and thinking, wow, this is really how they wrapped up the entire series. This kind of reminded me of a full length feature version of that. Like, I don't know, if you are a pro wrestling fan, maybe you'll get like the bare minimum enjoyment out of it just because it revolves out of like kind of like an indie pro wrestling scene. The wrestling itself and the kills, they're all right, but for like the 90 minutes that this movie is, it's just not enough. It's not fun enough for basically a pretty simple premise, I guess, on the surface, which is weird because for being so simple, there's still a little bit of confusing moving parts to it. But I don't know. Yeah, I just think it failed to be over the top enough. I think with a movie like this, it's almost like how you would have to go to kind of elevate the material. Also, yeah, Jericho, man. Jericho, you make an okay guest on The Last Drive-In, but as an actor, I don't know, man. Just
yeah, he makes a great victim for Art the Clown, but that's about it.
yeah. What else can I say? Not much. It was just disappointing because, like I said, the setup, the premise seemed okay when like they're like, hey, we're gonna get this call to go do this wrestling match, and of course like, okay, something's not on the level, something's gonna go wrong, and like when some matches first start, you're like, okay, this is where things could kick up a notch, but even they were kind of lackluster. And yeah, we can talk about that final scene and like why do you end it like this? Like, what the hell is this? But I'll leave it there for general thoughts for now. Back to you, Venom.
Yeah, that final scene, it just was completely unnecessary, honestly. They basically went the Smile route where they gave us something to look at that was completely unnecessary. I mean, if you guys remember our review of Smile and Smile 2, I had the same complaint about both of those movies. They were good up until that CGI monstrosity at the end just basically ruins everything. It's not quite that bad in this one, but it's still very similar to that. So obviously we'll get into it. And then I forgot to mention the pacing. The pacing in this movie, man, it takes 40 minutes. 40 minutes. This movie's only 95 minutes long, and it takes 40 minutes for anything remotely horror to happen. And that's a long time to wait. Like, yeah, we get set up. We get, weird, ambiguous little things. We get a weird cryptic like one line of dialogue to start the movie that almost makes it sound like it's going to be kind of fun, but no, it isn't. And then And then, like I said, the whole first act is just character development. The first 15 minutes is character development of the wrestlers and, you know, the promotion head and everything else. And then the second 15 minutes of the first act is character development of the cult, of the people there, the party. You know, the first night that they get there, there's a big party, blah, blah, blah. We'll get into it. But yeah, it takes forever. And then once that first horror thing happens, you're almost disappointed. Like, you're happy that finally something is happening, but when you really like just stop and think about it, it's like, oh, that was lame. And that's the other thing that bothers me, that the wrestling the wrestling matches at the cult compound were so fast. Like, you'd think that they'd want to drag it out and have a little bit of fun and be more entertaining, but it's like they just wanted to get to the purpose. You know, they wanted to get to the orgasm right away. Fuck foreplay, fuck everything else. Just let's get to it. I want to bust a nut and go. And it's like, that's not fun. Like, I wanted to see a little bit more with the wrestling matches at the compound. I want to see more, you know, maybe not torture necessarily, but more blood, more fighting, more weapons, more whatever the case may be. Like this cult leader, Jericho, like he didn't care about making these matches watchable or fun for the audience. It was just about their purpose, and that was it. And it's like, that's not ultra satisfying for the movie audience, you know, let alone the wrestling audience there in the arena. Well, I say arena, it's a glorified high school gym. It's not a fucking arena by any stretch. But yeah, I don't know how much more piss and vinegar I can throw towards this movie before we get into the spoiler section. So I'll ask my co-hosts if they have anything else they want to add before I get into what will be an incredibly short walkthrough, because I don't want to spend that much time with this movie.
Go for it.
I'm good.
All right, so let's get into it. Basically, our movie opens up and we're introduced to Saw. You know, I don't even remember what Saw stands for. Obviously, the W is wrestling, and there were multiple signs there, but I guess I just didn't care enough to look. But yeah, SAW is the name of the promotion. What's that?
I thought it meant Southern Alberta, like the territory they were in.
That could be it. I mean, like I said, I didn't read the sign. I didn't pause the movie to read the sign.
I thought that's what it was. I thought it meant Southern Alberta.
I mean, you might be right, and cool. I'm glad somebody was paying attention, because I wasn't gonna. Anyway, so we're introduced to SAW, local wrestling promotion, and we're basically given like a montage introduction to some of the wrestlers while they're wrestling. We're introduced to Mean Joe Lean, who is, of course, played by Stephen Ogg. Enigma, who is a kind of a masked luchador, but he's a black dude, so go figure. Kate the Great, who is kind of, you know, the good girl female wrestler. By the way, what kind of wrestling promotion only has 2 female wrestlers on the whole roster? That doesn't even make any sense to me. That means they have to fight every fucking night. That's going to get dull. And no wonder, you know, Misbehave had animosity towards Kate the Great, because Kate the Great is probably... go ahead.
Well, wasn't there a bunch of backstory about her wanting to go for the title? Like, it was intergender?
Exactly. What title? They only have one. They only have 2 female fighters. I mean, maybe they have a title belt, but we never saw Kate the Great holding a title belt. So I don't know what mythical title Misbehave was talking about that she wanted a title shot for. It almost seemed like she wanted to fight one of the men, because they never ever.
It was an intergender. That's what I'm saying. It was an intergender one.
Oh, was it?
That's what I got. I don't know for sure. That was the impression I got, that she wanted to go for the title, implying that it was an intergender promotion.
God, I hope not. I mean, I guess
I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's just a 2-woman division.
Exactly. That's what I mean. It doesn't make any sense. Like, at first I thought maybe she was talking about going to another promotion where they actually have a women's championship, but she was stuck in a contract with SAW. I don't know. Like I said, the movie is very, you know, kind of cryptic. It doesn't give you as much explanation as you'd like to get. But yeah, so, you know, and basically our movie opens up with Misbehave and Kate the Great having a wrestling match. the Great is, of course, the face, the good guy, and Misbehave is the heel or the bad guy. And, you know, during the match, you know, they're kind of talking to each other, which is very common among professional wrestlers. They talk to each other, talk about, you know, what move they're going to do next, you know, blah, 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 go for the pin, you know, whatever else. For those of you who are really in the know with professional wrestling, for those of you who are just casual fans and still think it's real, you might want to turn off this podcast because I'm going to spoil your dreams. But anyway, we have Kate the Great and Misbehave wrestling. Kate the Great wants Misbehave to lose and put on a good show because there's a scout. Supposedly there's a scout from a larger promotion there. But and Kate the Great does get the pinfall. She does get the win. But then she makes a comment to Misbehave, basically saying, hey, thanks for making me look so good. And Misbehave just punches her across the face and breaks her nose. This is after the match, of course. Of course, that causes some friction, but then the next morning, everything is fine. You know, they kind of bury the hatchet, or at least we think they bury the hatchet. The reason that the whole promotion has gotten together this morning is because their manager, or the Rusty, what was it? Rusty Beans, stupid fucking name. Rusty Beans, who is the Vince McMahon of this promotion, if you will, basically booked a what they call a dark match. And in the industry, a dark match is basically wrestling matches that aren't recorded for television. So they're not part of a pay-per-view. They're not going to be shown on any of the weekly shows. It's just kind of they call them house shows too sometimes in the circuit, just house shows, or dark matches, like I said. So basically Rusty Beans gets the promotion to do a show, or he's given an offer that he can't refuse. He's basically offered $50,000 to bring his stable of like maybe a dozen wrestlers to this isolated location to put on a show for this group of people. They're promised they're promised that it's going to be a sellout, that, you know, everybody's going to be there, every seat's going to be sold. Eventually, Rusty Beans ends up offering the wrestlers a little bit extra because they're all like, they're kind of feeling standoffish about doing this because they were given no previous notice. Literally, Kenny Beans set up the match, and then the next day he calls everybody and says, okay, we got to go. So they end up going. When they arrive, there's a big party. We see that it's some kind of compound. You know, they thought that they were going to be at a hotel with an arena, you know, or a gym or something like that, but it's literally just some kind of compound in the middle of nowhere. And then that evening during the party, out comes their leader, and of course it's Chris Jericho as the leader. That's actually the name of the character. I think his name is actually David. Later on in the film, one of the wrestlers will call the leader David multiple times just to spite him because he doesn't want to be called by that name. We'll get to that. So let's see. So basically he goes on this big diatribe about, you know, it's finally our time. And, you know, once this weekend is over, you know, it'll be our time to, you know, finally rule this world, blah, blah, blah. And then that's when the wrestlers realize, oh shit, this is a cult. We're at a fucking cult compound. They want to leave, but of course, Kenny Beans, their manager, won't allow it because he's been paid $50,000. Lord knows how much of the money he's actually sharing with the wrestlers. He's probably paying each of them like $500 or something and pocketing the rest. But regardless, and then while Jericho is doing his little spiel up on the altar, Mean Jolene, Stephen Ogg's character, realizes that this is an ex-wrestler. The guy, Jericho's character, is actually an ex-wrestler who used to wrestle for SAW. And it was somebody who, during his last match, during Jericho's last match with SAW, he was supposed to drop the championship belt, but basically decided he didn't want to. And Mean Jolene had to literally beat the shit out of him. So he literally like hit him for real, knocked him out, and then pinned him to take the title, which was the scripted ending. But of course, Jericho didn't really want to, cooperate. So after this, Jericho kind of disappears, the leader, if you will. I think his wrestling name was the Prophet. I should be calling him the Prophet. That was his wrestling name in the SAW days, before the cult. Okay, so it turns out all the wrestlers are drugged through either their alcohol, or those who don't drink are smoking weed. It seems like all the wrestlers have some kind of vice that'll get them drugged. They end up getting drugged. They all wake up the next morning in their beds. Like nothing is a foul, nobody's missing, nothing is wrong. It's just none of them really know what the fuck's going on, to the point that Mean Jolene even wakes up in bed with a strange woman. And I did forget to mention that Mean Jolene and Misbehaved are actually in a relationship. Maybe not the most committed relationship, because at the beginning of the party, Misbehaved tells them, "I'm not your girlfriend," or "we're not anything." And then the next day, she finds them in bed with another girl. And, of course, she has that attitude that every girl has, that, you literally broke up with him the night before, and now you're mad because he slept with another woman. I mean, he's a professional wrestler. It's not hard for those guys to get pussy. So come on. Anyway, point is, it is now the evening of the fights. It's time to... Oh, and I also forgot to mention that Kenny Beans, the night before during the party, ended up having a three-way with a couple of the cult members. And while he was shackled to a bed, he got branded with the logo of the promotion. Now, this happens before we find out even what's really happening yet. Like, we don't know totally what's happening. So they've already given away the fact that Kenny is kind of in on this, because he literally just got branded, and then the next morning is just acting like nothing happened. Like, he's not acting like he got attacked or drugged. He's just like, whatever, business as usual. So it's now the night of the fights. And all 5 of the fights, there are 5 fights scheduled. All 5 of them have elemental themes to them. Let's see. Match number 1 is wind. Match number 2 is water. Match number 3 is earth. Match number 4 is inferno. And match number 5 is spirit. And obviously they all have themes. With match number 1, which is wind, this one is a tag team match where we have the good guys, the Beast Brothers, fighting the bad guys, Thick and Thin. I actually kind of like Thick and Thin. They were funny. They were very religious. They were a couple of like Jehovah's Witness type characters with the white button-down shirts and the black ties, and basically, admonishing everybody as sinners, blah, blah, blah. So, of course, they were the heels. But during the introductions, when the wrestlers came out, they noticed, Thick and Thin, the bad guys, noticed that the Beast Brothers didn't look right. Like, they were wearing masks, and they were also wearing like metal spikes, almost like the Road Warriors, like the Legion of Doom wore those cool metal spikes on their shoulder pads. And so literally they're realizing that these aren't the Beast Brothers. Something is wrong. Unfortunately, by the time the match, and then the other thing is too, is that our wrestlers, the wrestlers that we're following, aren't told what the rules of each match is going to be. They don't know what the rules are until they're in the ring. They know that they're themed. They know that match 1 is water, match 2 is, whatever the case may be. Or match 1 is wind, match 2 is water. So anyway, when the match starts, basically a large, like, hidden platform moves from the ring, exposing a giant fan, like a giant, just like, like a wind turbine type thing, basically taking up most of the center of the ring. Now, it's not exposed. It's not like any of the wrestlers could fall in and get chopped up by the blade, which is kind of what I was hoping was going to happen, but no. What ends up happening is the wrestlers just kind of wrestle for not very long. I mean, literally, the match is like 30 seconds to a minute long. Eventually, one of the fake Beast Brothers tells the Thick and Thin wrestler that he's fighting, "Don't struggle. Only one of you has to die." So that's literally the first sign that, oh shit. I mean, obviously, as horror fans, we probably put it together already by this point. But this is the first time that the movie confirms that, oh yeah, these people are here to be fucking sacrificed. So what ends up happening is the wrestler that's being held down, they continue to hold him down. His partner, the other wrestler, ends up getting his throat slit. And then they end up pushing him over the fan so that when he's standing over the fan with blood coming out of his neck, it literally sprays all over the audience. Now, this could have been a cool shot, but they didn't follow up. Like, we see the wrestler with the slit throat walk over the fan blade, and then we see all the blood kind of shoot up in the air, but then we never get a shot of the audience. Like, I don't know. It just seemed like an easy opportunity. And then that's the end of match number 1. And one of the members of Thick and Thin has been dispatched. Now, if you ask what happened to the other member of Thick and Thin, the one that survived, your guess is as good as mine, friends, because we never fucking see him again. Literally, we never see the winning wrestlers again. They just, I don't know if it's just expected that they're become cult members, or maybe they're killed off site or whatever, or off screen, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I'll go over the matches really quick and then go over the little bit of the conspiracy that's happening. With match number 2, it is Water, and this is the female match. This is the match between Misbehave and Kate the Great. And in the middle of the fight, Kate the Great kind of exposes herself and basically lets it be known that she is also a member of this cult, that she is part of the setup, that her and Kenny kind of set up all the other wrestlers to be a part of this whole thing. Eventually, Kate the Great pulls out a fucking mace, a medieval mace on a chain, and starts, trying to basically kill Misbehave. At this point, Misbehave knows that she's got to defend herself, that basically Kate the Great is trying to kill her, because she literally says so in so many words. One of us has to die. Eventually, Misbehave is able to get the upper hand. She ends up beating the shit. I mean, literally beating the holy hell out of Kate the Great about the head and neck with her chain. Misbehave's kind of trademark weapon is a steel chain. Eventually, she ends up wrapping the chain around Kate the Great's head, and that's when she starts to have kind of that moment of morality where she doesn't want to kill Kate, but at the same time, she kind of understands that if I don't kill her, somebody's going to kill me. I'm going to die. So she ends up unceremoniously snapping Kate the Great's neck with the chain. As soon as that happens, the entire arena goes silent. Because don't forget, Kate the Great is a member of this cult. Eventually, Jericho comes running into the ring. So obviously, Jericho has a relationship with this girl. Basically starts fucking crying and bending over her body. Eventually, Misbehave, who still isn't quite sure what's happening. Like, she killed Kate, but she's still kind of confused and disoriented. She starts to apologize. She starts to say, "I'm sorry. She tried to kill me. I'm sorry." At that point, Jericho pulls a gun out, points it at Misbehave, but then Jericho's number one, like his number one henchman, basically tells him, no, we can't do it like that. We got to finish the ritual. Kate was the sacrifice, so we're done. This match is done. At that point, Jericho drops his gun, falls to the floor, and starts crying, "Daughter, oh, my daughter, what happened to you?" Yes, as it turns out, Kate the Great is the daughter of the Prophet, and that she, of course, played a major part in getting SAW to come out to this place. Okay, so match number 3 is now the Earth match. This match is between Kid Humble and Enigma. The Kid Humble is basically, he's a hero, but he's kind of like that ultra vain guy who's constantly fixing his hair, kind of like a Ravishing Rick Rude type. But he's the good guy. He's the hero. And then his opponent is Enigma. And like I said earlier, he is the masked luchador style wrestler. And when the fight starts, we actually see that there's a pile of dirt in the middle of the ground, very similar to a Buried Alive match for any Undertaker fans from the WWF or WWE out there. But as it turns out, the pile of earth doesn't even really play a factor into the match. What they end up doing is they take both Kid Humble's hands and Enigma's hands, they dip the hands in resin, and then they dip them in broken glass. So literally both of them got that kind of tie, street fight style where they got the broken glass embedded in their hands. And as soon as the fight starts, they just start beating the shit out of each other. It's funny because these two had no qualms, even though they are, of this promotion. And it seems like everybody in the promotion, whether good guys or bad guys, for the most part, everybody got along, other than Misbehave and Kate, of course. So Enigma and Kid Humble are beating the shit out of each other. Eventually, Kid Humble finds a piece of glass, like a broken piece of glass, embedded in the earth, in the pile of dirt in the ring, pulls out the shard and stabs Enigma right in the midsection. Basically, then he pulls it across a little bit, not quite all the way, but he pulls it across a little bit. Enigma falls down, dead, and that's the end of that match. Like I said, folks, if these matches sound boring, despite the fact that they're fights to the death, I assure you they were fucking boring. So, all right, so that's the end of that. Now it's on to match number 4, which is Inferno. Yes, we get a fire match. This match is Mean Joe Lean versus Lazarus Smashley. Lazarus Smashley, once again, is the good guy. He's the face. He's the one that all the fans like. Mean Joe Lean, of course, played by Stephen Ogg, is the heel. They end up having an Inferno match. Now, what's funny is that all throughout the movie, Kid Humble was a character, Lazarus was a character that was kind of prim and proper, and he'd constantly be fixing his hair and shit like that. And what's funny is that right before the match started, we see cult members spraying hairspray onto Lazarus's head, which goes with his theme, of course, his kind of being vain thing. But it's an Inferno match, so anybody who knows anything about physics and science should know hairspray and fire don't mix. So literally, as soon as the match starts, I'm not kidding, folks, literally the instant that the match starts, Lazarus takes a running charge at Mean Joe. Mean Joe dodges the attack, and one of the flamethrowers in the ring just unceremoniously sprays Lazarus in the face, and he's like on fire from the waist up. Now, Mean Joe, obviously, who's like real life friends with Lazarus, is basically screaming, somebody help him, what's going on? But obviously the audience is just laughing, they're applauding. Unfortunately, Lazarus does fall dead to a nice little crispy corpse there at the end. Now, at this point, we find out that the cult members have been taking the dead bodies as people die in the ring. They're taking them downstairs into the basement, the bodies, I mean, and they're setting them up in a pentagram formation and lighting a candle at the head of each. Excuse me. At this point, we see that Kenny Beans and Misbehave have figured out a way to get out of the compound. They're able to get out of the compound, and they eventually get to that area in the basement where they're setting up the bodies. Mean Joe and Misbehave end up killing the 2 guards that are down there. And then just as they're about to leave, Enigma wakes up. Literally, Enigma is not dead. And of course, Misbehave is like, oh, I thought you were dead. And he's like, nope, I was pretending. Well, not that he said it in so many words, because he's kind of a mute. I forgot to mention that Enigma is a mute. He doesn't speak. But he's still bleeding out. Like, the injury that he got with that shard of glass was still very real. So he's basically bleeding out. Misbehave and Enigma end up taking the guns from the 2 guards that they kill, and they start. And then Miss Enigma also finds a can of gasoline. So of course they go their separate ways. Enigma ends up going to a control room. He ends up finding a video control room, almost like a broadcast center. As it turns out, this is one of the stupid reveals of the movie. As it turns out, the leader has been recording these matches, and the plan is to sell them on the internet as snuff films, or as real wrestling. As we find out later in the film, Jericho's character was pissed off that people always accuse wrestling of being fake. So now he's making wrestling real, like as real as it could possibly be. Like literally someone dies in every match. So that's kind of the first reveal of what this cult is doing. The other reveal is that they have to sacrifice 5 people to complete some ritual. We don't know what the ritual is. They never really tell us throughout the movie. They just say we got to finish the ritual. So it is now time for the final match. And the final match, of course, match 5 or match 4 was Inferno. Mean Joe, of course, beat Lazarus. Now the final match is called Spirit. And of course, it's called Spirit because whoever loses is going to be the final sacrifice for this ritual that they're doing. They end up fighting back and forth. It ends up being a cage match. They lower a cage down. Jericho is basically just beating the shit out of Mean Joe throughout the entirety of the match. Because, of course, by this point, Mean Joe has already gone through so much. He's already been attacked and beaten up multiple times, blah, 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 blah. So, you know, he ends up being fairly easy pickings for Jericho. Eventually, a fire starts out in the compound. We see a fire start in the room where they're having the wrestling matches. And then we see everybody start piling out. And then Jericho's number 1 basically starts screaming, "No, get back to your seat. We got to finish the ritual." And he literally just starts shooting people as they're running away, which I don't know what the mentality there is, but whatever. He's basically just shooting people as they're trying to escape the fire. Like I said, eventually there's a back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Misbehave is able to get into the ring. It's almost like real pro wrestling where there was a run-in. Like literally Misbehave runs in, she unlocks the cage, gets in there, tries to help Mean Joe, but Jericho is, you know, too much for her. So at this point, Mean Joe is just on the ground bleeding at this point, and now Jericho is beating up on Misbehave. No one ever attacked the referee, too. Did you guys notice that douchebag little blonde teenage kid referee? Like, no one beat the shit out of him, and that bothers me. Like, why not kill him? Can't he be the 5th sacrifice? Like, that's what I was thinking the whole time. It's like, does it have to be one of the wrestlers? Can't it be the referee? I mean, a sacrifice is a sacrifice, isn't it? But they basically the referee just gets forgotten about. Eventually, Misbehave is able to get the better of Jericho. This is after she kills his number 1. That was the death that I was very satisfied with. Even though it's a very boring death, it's just an impaling. I hated that fucking character so much that I laughed my ass off when he died. Especially the fact that he died at the hands of a woman that he was flirting with earlier in the movie. So it made me endlessly happy. So like I said, they're able to get in the ring. Eventually, Jericho pulls out a ceremonial dagger to kind of finish the fight. Of course, Misbehave is able to disarm him, and she ends up stabbing Jericho herself. The knife goes into his chest about halfway, and then she does like a Shawn Michaels super kick and kicks the knife all the way into his chest. He falls over dead, and at this point, like the whole place is on fire. You know, don't forget there was a fire started a few minutes ago, so the place is engulfed in flame. Unfortunately, after Enigma assists Misbehave in killing the Prophet's number 1, he finally succumbs to his injury and he falls over and dies. And like I said, at this point, it's Misbehave and Mean Joe. They are the final 2 survivors. They end up walking out of the compound, and then Kenny Beans shows up. Earlier in the film, he escaped with the company van, and he's such a scumbag that I think we all just assumed we'd never see him again, but he has a little bit of a redemption moment, even though it's not much of a redemption moment because he set these fucking wrestlers up for this shit. So I'm pretty sure that Misbehave and Mean Joe are going to kill him like after the credits or something. Like there's no way you're going to let that guy live after what he tried to do to you and what he did do to the rest of the promotion. He basically wiped out the entire fucking promotion except for 2 people. So eventually, as Mean Joe and Misbehave and Kenny Beans are all driving away from the compound, they suddenly stop in the middle of the road and they're all just staring Or wait, before that, I'm sorry. Before that, we see that one female cult member did survive. She was shot in the stomach earlier in the film, but she did end up surviving. She ends up taking Jericho's body from the ring down to that kind of sacrificial altar in the basement. So, as it turns out, the Prophet could be the fifth sacrifice, and that's exactly what happens. She ends up putting Enigma back where he was, because now he really is dead. He's legitimately dead. She puts him back. She puts all 5 bodies in place, lights all 5 candles, and then she starts chanting this very cryptic lines. She starts smashing the ground with her fists, and every time that she does that, we see like an image of like a demonic beast, some kind of demon or something, kind of writhing, almost like it's getting ready for something. Finally, she finishes the ritual and the building collapses on top of her. The whole fucking roof just collapses on her. So did she finish the ritual or not? Well, let's find out. As our 3 survivors are driving away, they stop in the middle of the road, and they're all 3 of their jaws drop, and they're just like, what the fuck is that? Finally, the camera pans over and we see a literal demon. Yes, horns, tail, everything. A big green fucking demonic beast. And without hesitation, Misbehave grabs her chain, walks out of the fucking van, and confronts the demon. Just stands in front of him, like in the ready position, like she's ready to fight. Then we hear the demon actually say, "Who dares challenge me?" And she goes, I'm right here, bitch. And literally, they do the Amazing Spider-Man 2 ending. If you guys remember that ending where the Rhino and Spider-Man are charging each other, and right before they hit each other, fucking credits. That's what we fucking get in Dark Match. Literally, just as Misbehave is about to attack this demon, fade to black and the fucking movie is over. Fuck you for doing that to me. How dare you give us a cliffhanger ending like that? You literally make us watch 95 minutes of a subpar movie so that we can finally get to the big confrontation, and then we don't fucking get it. So yeah, Lowell Dean, you burned a lot of the good graces that you earned with Wolf Cop. I love the 2 Wolf Cop movies, but my friend, you fucked up with this movie, and you've kind of lost a little bit of horror cred with me. I know I'm nobody, it doesn't matter, but I had such a bad time watching this movie, and I'm very, very glad I'm done talking about it. So let's move on, shall we?
Yeah, I think it's time to call this one a no contest.
Yeah.
The ref is ringing the bell.
Yep. Dead by lack of interest.
Yeah. What do I got to add to that? Not a whole lot. Yeah, the ending was kind of, because I mean, you brought up the Spider-Man 2 ending. Like, at least in that case, you could kind of make the argument that, like, okay, if there's a franchise here going on, right, then it's going to lead to something. But in a one-off movie, like, what the hell are you doing here?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Like, why even spend the... And what I was saying earlier, folks, this final scene wasn't even necessary. If the 3 of them just drove away into the sunset and we're just kind of left wondering, did the ritual work? Did it not? I'm okay with that. It's still an ambiguous ending, yes, but it's not a fucking cliffhanger. And yeah, you can't end one-off movies with a cliffhanger. It's not satisfying. It leaves a bad taste in your audience's mouth, and that's all they're going to remember. Like, years from now, I'm like, think about it. Same thing with The Devil Inside. It's been well over a decade since that terrible found footage movie came out, and all anybody can remember was that terrible fucking ending. Same thing's going to happen with this movie, if anybody even remembers this movie 10 years from now. But if they do, they're going to remember it for that fucking awful ending. So, yeah, what can I say? Fuck Dark Match.
No argument for me. So, with that said, let's wrap this shit up. What new do we have to listen to, Venom?
Nothing quite new out. I'm in the process of editing 2 episodes right now. So we've got No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts, episode number 35, where I'm editing that one right now, where we looked at the original movie Cat People, the original Cat People from 1942. Of course, that episode and the next episode of Creature Comforts are both in correspondence with the next main show, where we're going to be looking at the remakes of both Cat People and The Fly. So, of course, on the next episode of Creature Comforts, we'll do the original Fly, and on the next main show, we'll be doing the remakes of both of those. So, hopefully, I'll have Creature Comforts done and out before the main show is out. I'm pretty sure I can do that. So look out for that one. And then the other one that I'm working on is No More Room in Hell presents the Crystal Lake Gift Shop. Yes, Lacey, Mike, and myself were able to get together and actually have like a 2-week turnaround and get another episode out a lot quicker than we have been. So that is episode 7, where we discuss the episode The Great Montero from Friday the 13th, the series. We are still on season 1, of course, so still plenty of time to catch up if you're interested in that. Like I said, that one's not as high a priority as Creature Comforts, so look for that one maybe probably like early March, maybe like the first week of March. I'll have that one done and out. But Creature Comforts, I'll make, since that is our official February episode, I will definitely have that done before the end of the weekend. It's Friday right now, so I'll have it done by Sunday. And I think that's pretty much it for what we have. I haven't had any guest spots lately, and I did get confirmation that I'll be back on Cole's show. I forgot the damn name of it. Is that Journey with the Cinephile, or is that Joe Blow? It's the Joe Blow Horror Show. My bad. Yes, I'll be back on the Joe Blow Horror Show for the summer series again. This summer, they are looking at giallos rather than looking at an actual series, which is what they've done in years past, where we looked at stuff like Hellraiser and Romero's zombie movies and things like that. They just decided to do a more encompassing theme of giallos, and they let me pick the movie that I'll be reviewing, which is very nice of them. So I'm still kind of deciding which giallo I want to do. But yeah, I don't even know why I'm talking about it, because that's the summer series, but it's about the only other thing I've got to talk about right now, so I figured I'd bring it up. But yeah, that's it for me.
Cool. How about you, Don?
Yeah, as mentioned, we've got a latest Creature Comforts. We should be back in the recording booth for the next episode pretty soon, since we already know what it is. So I think we should be recording that one for March sometime sooner rather than later. The only other thing I have is the roundtable that I've been talking about for the past couple of weeks. That got postponed at the 11th hour. We ended up having a couple of the guests cancel that day, so we're moving it. Unfortunately, it's not recorded yet, so I don't know when that's going to be. It's up in the air. We've got a couple of different dates that we're talking about as of now, but again, I'll talk about that when it's recorded. So only other thing is the episode of Creature Comforts. So back to you.
All right. Nothing for me that hasn't been already mentioned. The only other thing I'll add is I think we have a recording date for the next episode of the main show coming up this weekend. So look for that. And then the next episode of this show should be The Monkey. I don't see any reason it wouldn't be. And because we're recording, yeah, since we're recording this episode late this week, you'll probably be getting that one within like a couple days of listening to this one. So look for that shortly as well. And that's all I got. So with that said, thanks everyone for tuning into the latest episode. We will catch you very soon with a couple more episodes of stuff. So let's say bye to our listeners.
Later.
Never ever agree to a dark match in the middle of nowhere. It can't end well.
Peace.